Hi, I'm not gonna lie, this manga is freaking awesome. I finally got my hands on Tokyo Revengers, and I received this today, and I finished it today, and oh my god, I freaking loved it. So, let's talk about Tokyo Revengers. But just before we do that, if you want to get your hands on Tokyo Revengers or any other manga that you can think of, please be sure to use the links down in the description for Right Stuff, Forbidden Planet, and Book Depository. Buying anything on there supports the channel, and it doesn't affect you in any way. It's exactly the same as you would normally buy manga. So thank you. Let's get on to the video. So I heard a lot about Tokyo Revengers as it was coming out and as the anime was airing. And I also know that it had a massive drop off, I believe, near the end of the manga's run. So I went into this with kind of low expectations, but oh my god, I was absolutely blown away. Tokyo Revengers is a story that follows our main character, Takemichi, who's kind of this boring, grounded, run-of-the-mill adult man who lived a kind of fast lifestyle when he was younger, but has since given that away for much more mundane, boring day-to-day life. Until one day he is watching the news and he sees that his girlfriend from when he was in high school has died in a gang-related incident. This completely shocks him, and that same day he ends up falling or getting pushed in front of a train. And whilst his life is flashing before his eyes and he's about to die, he actually gets transported 12 years into the past to his golden days of high school. And throughout the first volume, we learn that he has this ability to travel forward and backwards in time just by shaking the hand of his ex-girlfriend's brother. And by traveling back and forward in time, he's actually able to change the future and potentially save not only his girlfriend's life, but also the lives of many of his friends. And basically, he can change the future for the better. And that's our really basic synopsis of Tokyo Revengers. It's a time-traveling story that's very grounded in high school, but also gangs, and the gangs of Tokyo, the biker gangs of Tokyo. That's what this mainly focuses on, and the violence that comes alongside these gangs. When Takemichi was younger in his actual real timeline, he was part of a kind of off-brand of one of the main gangs in Tokyo that in the future, or the present, is now the most powerful, ruthless, notorious gang in all of Tokyo. So he was part of this off-branch, but due to his constant beatings and bullying and the hardships of being in this gang, he actually ended up running away, leaving all of his friends and his girlfriend to suffer the consequences of being involved in this life. And as he's transported back, he finds a newfound bravery and actually sticks up for himself and his friends, and ends up meeting the leader of the gang named Mikey. And it's from this meeting that the story really gets going, because in meeting Mikey, he has an opportunity to change the future, and that's what the story revolves around. His relationship with Mikey and how he can actually stop the events that they know are going to happen from happening to change the future. And I really enjoyed this part of the manga, seeing this boy who's actually an adult and his newfound bravery. He's aware of the mistakes that he's made and he knows he doesn't want to make them again. And that was super awesome. So this edition actually comes with the first 2 volumes of the manga, and it mainly focuses on grounding us in the world, but also it grounds us in the characters, the lives of the characters, and the different gangs that are running around. We also see the relationship start to blossom between Takemichi and Mikey, who is this really scary gang leader, but for some reason has this connection to Takemichi, this friendly connection. And we start to see as well that this Mikey, who's been made out to be this villainous man, this violent, ruthless person, is actually very mature and well-meaning in the way he behaves. He doesn't hit women. He understands the idea of revenge and getting back at people for when they do something wrong. Even though he's the leader of a gang, he kind of knows what's right from wrong, but then he's also this cold person who doesn't like being told what to do, won't take no for an answer, and is a really strong, fearsome leader. And his second in command, called Draken, is very much the same, but both of these characters seem to form a connection with our main character, and it was really cool to see because they're all kind of young-ish, I believe, in the story. I would estimate around 16, so you kind of see that childish playfulness in their relationship with the main character. And one of the main things I have to say about the story so far is just how charming all of the cast are. I say all of the cast, but there's actually a lot of assholes in the cast, but the main cast are all charming. They're all written in this way that they're young, they have ambitions, but they're also muddled in this deep kind of sad, depressing life lifestyle. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of the backstories behind these characters, but the main character Takemichi and his goal and his drives have really excited me to read more of this story because he's so committed to saving people. I really, really like that for a main character in manga. And he's also this sort of underdog. He's come from nothing, he's standing up, he's showing bravery where a lot of people wouldn't, and that's getting him noticed by the big leagues. That's why these people have noticed him. The fact that he stands up for his friends, he stands up for himself, and he stands up for his girlfriend. And that's why Mikey and Draken have kind of formed a bond with him, because they can see he's a genuine person with good morals, and that's what they want for someone in their gang. Because a genuine person that you can form a genuine relationship with can probably be used, or at least would dedicate themselves to you if they believed you were in the right, but also might stand up to you if they believed you're in the wrong, which is another thing that the second volume in this omnibus actually covered. How even though Mikey is the leader of the gang, he is still able to take people's advice. He doesn't like being told no, but there are certain people that he respects and that he knows are correct, and he also knows when he's out of line. And the realism around these characters is something that enticed me so much, and when this volume ended, I was actually visibly annoyed because I want to read more, and I have this rule where I don't read manga digitally because I'm buying it and I don't want to waste money on something I've already read. But oh my god, I want to read more of Tokyo Revengers because it is so enthralling and grounded and real, and for a manga you don't see that too often, especially with the stuff that I read. So I'm super glad I picked this series up. Another main point of the first volume was this idea of defeating the stereotypes of these violent people. At the start, the main character's quest is to stop the two leaders of the gang from meeting. And he has this belief that these two people are the reason that his girlfriend dies in the present day. But really, as he meets Mikey, he starts to understand that this person isn't a violent monster, a devil. They're actually a normal human being who is in a strange, violent world. And yes, they are a little bit cold and they do have those tendencies, but they're not someone who would go out and murder an innocent woman. And I think this idea of defeating the stereotypes is really interesting because we're seeing an inside look into the gang world where it's not as much of a villainous and negative atmosphere as some people might potentially think. It actually seems a lot more brotherly and bonded. And again, I really enjoyed that. Now, if you know me, you'll know that I absolutely love time travel stories. Now, one of the reasons I love time travel stories is I like the interesting ways time travel is used and explained. Let me use a perfect example of this. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is a perfect time travel story in my eyes. The way everything loops around, it's not creating paradoxes, it's not creating different timelines. It's just one singular timeline I really enjoyed. However, the way Tokyo Revengers is doing this is also very interesting to me because they're not doing the sciencey route for time travel. They're not saying if you go back in time, if you step on a butterfly, the world will end. What they're doing is if you go back in time and change one thing, the entire future changes. And your original timeline that you came from changes with it. So Takemichi will go back in time and he'll become the same person that he was back then, but with his adult mind, and he'll behave the way his adult self behaves. And when he travels forward, the 12 years ago him then reverts back to the way he behaved 12 years ago. And he's like a little bit more of an asshole because he's actually a child. But the future him lives now in a world where the actions he just changed have directly affected the future. For example, his friends are ending up in different positions to what they would have been in had he never gone back in time. And I think that's really interesting to see what he can change to alter the future, because there could be unforeseen circumstances and consequences to his actions. And I think that's something that I'm really, really hoping they explore, because oh my god, I love time travel, and the idea of like consequences without the world's gonna end just seems really interesting to me. I want him to make mistakes so that he can learn from them, but I'm also really scared for him to make mistakes because literally anything could happen. And there's quite a big scene in this first omnibus that proves that whilst he thinks he's doing the right thing, potentially he's not, and he's also creating like more work for himself for people that he has to save. It's also a large mystery aspect because this guy has a superpower. We don't know how he's got it. Maybe it won't ever be explained. But it's also interesting to see how the story is written, because we know the outcome. We just don't know how people got there. And I think that's so interesting to know the end of the story, and you're actually going to the middle and finding out what the journey was. This is a perfect example of journey before destination, because we know the destination and now we're watching the journey unfold. And with the way that the time travel works, I have a feeling that the destination is going to be predetermined depending on his actions. But I want to see what happens. No spoilers. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the art. Now, the art itself is nothing spectacular in my opinion. A lot of it's very simplistic, but that adds to the charm of the manga. It's a manga set in high school, and I think that the artwork reflects this. And it's like, it has a smooth, childlike nature. It's not sketchy, but it's very simplistic. But then as I say this, some of the full page spreads are absolutely amazing on this, and all of the characters are so full of life and emotion, and the art is really, really good for this manga. I think it suits it perfectly, and I don't say that very often about artwork in manga because I'm not an artist. I don't know what I'm talking about, but for this manga in particular, I thought the artwork suited it perfectly. And then just quickly, we need to talk about this edition. So looking at the front, we've got a super simplistic artwork, but it's on this matted, glossy-ish finish, so it has a little bit of shine to it, but it also has texture on the front, and it just feels really, really high quality in your hands. That's the first thing I have to say. Secondly, this spine is so cool, and I am so excited to display this on my shelf. This might be my favorite spine behind Vagabond on my entire shelf. I don't even know what it is. It just looks so good. Obviously, this is a 2-in-1 omnibus, which I think is perfect for this release, because if I'd only got one volume, I would have been absolutely craving another volume. So I'm glad I got two. I'm glad we're going to get two at a time. The last thing I want to say is there are actually a couple of color pages at the start of the manga. We get a different cover as well there, and there are a couple of color pages, and I love when manga just chucks a little bit extra in, because this isn't the cheapest release, but it's definitely worth it. So yeah, that's me gushing about Tokyo Revengers. I just finished off the first omnibus. Absolutely adored it. I cannot lie to you. Really, really fantastic series. I'm excited to see where it goes. I know that potentially there might be a drop off near the end, and that will always be a fear for me, but the series currently fantastic. One of the best things I've ever read on my first impressions. Like, truly, truly awesome freaking series that I cannot wait to get more into, and I cannot recommend to you guys enough. If you want to get away from the ideas of fantasy and sci-fi and battle shonen and just get into a series that's much more grounded and much more real, even though there's obviously things that don't happen in the real world, Tokyo Revengers is really freaking good. Cannot recommend it enough. Highest of praises on the Nerd Lounge today. Well fucking done. So guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified every single time that I upload. Let me know what you thought of Tokyo Revengers down in the comments, and also recommend me a manga to read, because we're going to be doing some more first impressions episodes, and I need recommendations. Simple as that. Thank you guys for watching. Got some awesome content coming up soon. Make sure to hit the links in the description if you want to buy some manga for yourself. Also, follow me on Twitter, hit up the Discord, because we just made a Discord. Thank you guys. All the support you've given me recently means the freaking world, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.